And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again. It's your favorite time of the week. It's Keepin It Rio time. This, folks, is episode 261, maybe 262, but I think it's 261. I'm a roofer, so I stopped counting after like 10. I ran out of toes. So it's up there in the 200s, and we're going to have a great episode today. This is another one of my favorite ones where basically I had a gentleman that reached out to me a couple days ago and asked if I would have any interest in speaking to some artists. And obviously I'm all about speaking with artists. So he lined me up with a couple podcast guests. And today I've got a guest that I've got quite a bit in common with. So no hesitation whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Lee, my guest, to the show today. Welcome to Keepin It Rio, my friend. How's it going?
I'm doing good, Chuck. How you doing, man? It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just kind of chatting a little bit before we got started here. I always joke and say I usually get to meet people and we know each other for like 2 minutes before we hit record. But yeah, I learned a lot about you already. I saw that my guy Brutus back here, he was, he's hiding his face right now, but we come from the same hometown. So absolutely. I want to kind of kick off a little bit there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just kind of roll with it and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, so I'm an independent hip hop artist, like you said, originally from Columbus, Ohio, now living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a lot of the music that I make focuses on like storytelling, events and things I've experienced when I was a kid living back in Columbus, or other people's stories that I have close relationships with. So I do like to do a lot of storytelling, but also like to just make good, uplifting, feel good music that makes people want to smile or dance or, go out there and try to be the best version of themselves. That's me. And I just really enjoy the artistry of it all. And, now I'm down here in Charlotte, North Carolina, which has been a really interesting experience for me because I'm, immersed myself in a different culture, especially when it comes to hip hop. So, I found a way to blend the Midwest with the South and all of that and put it together. So I think that's what makes my sound a little special, a little different.
I love that. And having a little bit of that mixture is something I definitely understand. Cause like I said, I grew up in Columbus, and straight from Columbus, I moved to Charlotte and I was there for a few years. And you're right. It's kind of it's a little bit of a different scenario there. And then I end up in Texas, and that's totally different.
But I guess I'll add this too. I lived in Texas for 9 months. Also, I lived down there in Katy near Houston.
I know exactly where Katy is. I lived in College Station before I came here. So we've been kind of in the same circles for our entire lives. And now it's time to finally meet and see what's going on here. But I love it. And like you say, growing up in Columbus, there's a lot of influences there as well. Hip hop is pretty, prominent in Columbus. And I lived there basically my entire life until 2010. Yeah. And I always like to talk to folks from Columbus and kind of feel like, what was your inspiration growing up? What did you look up to, or what kind of things did you experience along the way that have kind of formed you as a human being and as an artist?
Yeah. So first and foremost, for two people here from Columbus, it's only right that I give a special shout out to Bow Wow. He was, the hip hop artist during his time. Originally from Columbus, Ohio. I mean, we had a lot of overlap, same way like you and I do, where we were in fact living in the same neighborhood. I went to the same middle school, same area, obviously 2 different times, but like he was there, and then about 8 to 10 years later, I showed up. So he had a big influence on me just in terms of liking music, liking hip hop, things like that. Once I started like taking a little more serious around like 2008, 2006 or so, other people, like Lil Wayne had a huge influence on me when it comes to how I approach music. People like The Game and Dipset had a big influence on me, putting together that East Coast, West Coast kind of energy as well. So I kind of like pulled from everything. I grew up in a house where I didn't grow up in like a music house necessarily. No one in my house, in my family, like truly played music or an instrument or anything like that. But I grew up in a house that valued education and sports. So, I played football all the way up until I was 18 years old. And the focus was, you're going to go to school, you're going to get an A, you're going to put the pads on, you're going to knock some heads, you're going to go to sleep, and you're going to do it all over again. And you know all about that football culture up there in Columbus, Ohio. It's I put it up there against Texas any day. So it was really intense. But the thing was, while I was doing all that, music was always being played. So while I'm being forced to do homework or studying, my dad's listening to DMX. While we're on the way to a football game, my brother is listening to another hip hop artist. While my mom's cleaning the house, she's listening to gospel music or neo soul. So music was always in the house 24/7. And I think just hearing that, I kind of like gravitated towards it, and it became something of my own. Like I said, in the house, everyone valued education and sports. That's what everyone did. Everyone valued. But like for me, it didn't became, yeah, I value education, I value sports, but I also like really appreciate and value this thing called hip hop. And it was like my own little thing I got to keep to myself.
I like that. And it's, like you say, you can kind of have your own identity.
Yeah.
It's got a blend of stuff going on around you all the time. And you start to kind of, you've got a soundtrack to your life, really. And as you're going through, you start to really appreciate that. And you think, whenever this good thing happened, this is what I was listening to in the background. And just all that stuff kind of, it just kind of all blends together. And you get this love for music, and you start, expressing yourself artistically.
Right.
And I always like to know a little bit about this. I've had 42 best-selling authors on my podcast, and you'd be surprised at how people get creative and like some of the stuff they do. Like I've had people that have like gone out in the woods and like lived in a, a cabin or like a little teepee type thing for like 3 weeks in the freezing blizzard, come back with a bestseller. I've had people that have like, kind of just progressively done it. And I always like to ask, for your creativity, what kind of a process do you have when something comes to your mind? A lot of people say, something just everyday life is going on, and all of a sudden something kind of pops into your head. Boom, there it is. Do you have a process to where it's like, you know what? I need to keep that. I need to hold on to it. Or like me, do you forget about like a lot of your brilliant stuff? And it's like, man, I hope it comes back someday because it was brilliant back then. I just don't remember it.
Yeah. So like when I was younger, my dad, he knew I was into music and he wanted to, be involved in that as well. So like he was the one who was encouraging me to write down lyrics, write down my raps, all of that kind of stuff. Before that, it was just I said it, and who knows if I'll ever remember it again. So he was the one that encouraged me to keep writing and keep working on my lyrics. As I got older, thank God for the phone, man.
Right.
Or else I'd remember nothing probably. I love that notes app. And, a lot of my creativity is drawn from life experiences, like I said. So, of course, going out, hanging out with friends, being with my family, things like that, that's what helps me pull a lot of my creativity and my storytelling. But the most I've gotten creative is when I'm driving. And I know it probably doesn't sound the same.
I make up words when I'm driving. Trust me. I know about that.
When you're just like, I used to have a job where I would drive 3-4 hours a day. So I would just be on the road and it gets silent, you get tired of hearing this, you want to, you're just in your own thoughts. And then next thing you know, I start rapping, and then I start coming up with lyrics, and then, oh man, that sounded really good what I just said. And I put on the microphone or the record microphone button on my phone. I'll just rap in the car and then stop. And then I'll come back to it later and pull what I like, rewrite it, clean it up. And then I just would keep doing that over and over and over. So like when I put out my album back in 2024, I would probably say 60% of those songs were written while I was driving. And the other 40% was probably for me just sitting down, enjoying, a nice cocktail or something and feeling the vibe. And then I'm going to go ahead and get to writing. So it's always different, but I would say the car is the most part where I get my creativity.
I think that's pretty amazing. And a lot of people actually say that same thing. They're like, I just go for a long drive and it all just kind of comes out. And that's me. Whenever I go for a long drive, I don't know, a lot of stuff comes out, but nothing's really productive or creative. It's always, I guess that's your brain dump time. But I love to hear about people that, really are passionate about stuff that they're doing. Obviously, you're super passionate. You have, your entire life been influenced by the music. You've gotten into it. Now, I always like to ask this question as well. Obviously, at a young age, you kind of get into music. Tell me a little bit about the moment, or that, maybe there were a series of events where you thought, you know what, this is something that I'm pretty dang good at, and I think maybe I could make a go of it, and I'm going to try to, really go and pursue my dream. So what was that moment like for you? And, we're definitely going to dive deep into living your dream here, but what was that first thing that just kind of caught your eye? Maybe it was like someone saying something to you, or just something that caught you that sparked it.
Yeah, so I'll try to make this as short of an answer as possible. But I do want to like frame it so you understand my mindset at the time of what was going on. I probably started like getting into making music around the age of 8 or 10ish, somewhere around there. It started becoming known within my family maybe around when I was like 12. I mean, I did hip hop classes in middle school, and I had a basement studio, and I used to sell CDs at the corner store off of Morris Road, like all of those different kinds of things.
Granddad's Pizza. I'm just throwing that out.
Oh yeah.
I know. I'm just throwing that out there.
But so it was always an on again, off again thing for me because, in my community and my environment, it was kind of like, oh, you want to be a rapper? Like we all want to be rappers. Everyone wants to be a rapper. So it was like that thing you say you want to do that people start to pick on you for if you take it serious. Like if you don't take yourself serious and it's cool because, oh, he can rap, but he doesn't take you serious. That's all right.
Yeah.
If you can rap and you take yourself serious, then it's like, no, that's not cool. That's lame and wrong. Make fun of you for it. So I was always on again, off again with music where I would focus on sports. I'd focus on school, and I wouldn't write for like 2 or 3 years, or I would write privately to myself, but no one would know I was doing it. And that went all the way up until I was 18 years old, where some people knew I did make music, but no one truly ever like heard me rap. So fast forward to 2020, where now I am 22, 23 years old or so, and I'm going back to Columbus to hang out with some of my high school friends. He has a basement studio, and he's in there playing beats. We're drinking, we're having a good time. And of course, you're in the basement studio. The first thing that everyone does is you got to freestyle. We all got to go around and freestyle. So everyone does their thing. I'm the last one up, and people are like, "All right, go ahead." Like we got this rumor that you rap, so let's see what you got.
Oh yeah, now's the moment.
Yeah, and I'm not a kid anymore, so now I have like this confidence of like, no, I'm going to do this. And I mean, I kid you not, man, I do a 16 bars rap with metaphors and similes and all of this kind of stuff. Like it wasn't I'm playing around. It was like I'm being dead ass serious. I'm rapping. So then I finish and I'm expecting instant response because that's usually how it happens when you rap in front of people. You rap and it's all of that kind of stuff. And I finished and then like you could hear a pin drop. It was just silent. So now like I'm crushed, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, like has something been telling me I've been right for the past 20 some odd years that I shouldn't do this? And then everyone just like sits there and then they all freak out like, I didn't know you could. Oh. So then I get the late reaction. And then that's when I got the confidence to see, wait, if the words that I come up with in my brain can make people feel this way and create this kind of response. And so I'm like, only know 2 people in here personally. And they don't owe anything to me. They could say, man, that was whack. But they gave honest reactions. Everyone else who hardly knows me gives honest reactions. And then right after that, it's no, come on, we gonna record something. We gonna make a song right now. And we lay down the track right then and there. That experience told me, hey man, you are talented. You have this special gift. And God gifted you with this gift. So it'd be wrong for you not to use it, And the other thing too is I know, like I'm a new father, so I know at some point my son's going to ask me, Dad, what did you want to be when you were a kid? And I'd be lying if I don't say I want to be a rapper. So I that's the response I have to get. And the follow up is going to be, well, did you try it? Did you do anything? And I at least want to show him, yes, I did try. So I was thinking about all of that, and I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to put a budget behind it. I'm going to make, a project. And probably about 6 months later, I dropped 2 EPs, the project part 1 and part 2. And a lot of it was just stuff I had written when I was 16, 17, and I just polished it. And then from that, I was able to put out an album because while I'm recording the stuff I did when I was a teenager, I'm also writing stuff now as a 20-something. So then put those two out. I wait a year, put the next album out, and I just haven't stopped since.
Man, I love that. And the reasons for doing it are so awesome. And I love when people give their why. And it's like, I want my kids to know that I
Yeah.
tried. And, if you don't try, you're never going to succeed. And who knows? The people that are persistent, the people that keep going, people that don't give up, they're the ones that win. So you got just as good a shot as anybody as long as you're in the game. And I think that's an important lesson for your kids. And that's tremendous. So I love what you just said. You make this decision and you're like, all right, I got the skill. I'm gonna focus on this 100%.
Yeah.
One word that came in there that I really was paying attention to was budget. So this is not a cheap little thing to get into. Believe me, I know. I got a podcast and I got all this stuff over here, and this is like not even remotely close. So you start getting into this. This guy I had on yesterday was kind of funny. He's like, I started off on a little table at the end of my bed and I was doing it into my cell phone, and then finally got a microphone, did all that. So tell me about your progression here as you get going, because obviously it doesn't just all come together. You got to like really go out there and work, selling CDs on Morse Road and doing all that. Tell me a little bit about that hustle getting there. And then, when you finally got to the point where it's like, yeah, here we are.
Yeah. So I started out with a basement studio that I did not pay for. I don't know if you've seen Hustle and Flow, but I kid you not, it looked exactly like the studio on Hustle and Flow. I mean, we had the egg cartons on the wall, and you had the curtain and all that stuff. But I was a kid, so I didn't pay for any of that. And we used that. That's where I put down my first song ever, and that was the song I was selling on Morris Road called "We Just Some Kids." Then I progressed around like 12. I was in a hip hop class, and at the end of it, we all got to go to the studio and record. Each person got to record their own song. Mind you, I had a little bit of experience of working in the studio from the basement. So I was, compared to the other people in my group, seemed professional. Yeah. People are like, clearly you have an idea of what you're doing. I put together a song there, and it was actually a diss track to the school that paid for me to be there.
Sometimes you got to do that. I understand. I've done that to a couple of my former jobs.
Yeah, it happens. But then, like when I was a 20-something, I had no skill set of how to use Pro Tools. I didn't have any equipment. I didn't know any of that stuff. All I knew is I could write raps. I know how to put these lyrics together. You give me a beat, and I can take care of the rest. So, I found a studio that seemed professional enough, and I started vetting different engineers, almost like interviewing them over the phone. So I would call like, hey, I want to book studio time. And they'd be like, okay, what do you want? And then I would start asking all these strange questions of, well, how long have you been doing this? What is it? And I would say, like, are you a yes man? If I make something that's bad, are you going to tell me it's good just because I'm paying you? And I was waiting for someone to like say, like, no, dude, like, we don't make trash here. If your music is bad, I'll tell you it's bad. Yeah, but I also will tell you what you need to do to make it better. And that's what I was looking for. So when I found that person, I started working with them, and it was just, most people don't do this, but it was just me paying him for hourly studio sessions. And it advanced over time because it started with, okay, I just want to come in here and record. I don't want to mix, master. I don't want any of that. I just want to record it so good that it sounds clean enough that I don't have to mix and master. And then it got even more of, okay, well, now I want to purchase beats. I don't want to steal beats anymore. So now I'm buying beats and I'm paying for the studio time. Then it gets more. Now I'm buying beats, paying for studio time, paying for mixing and mastering. And I just kept like putting my budget towards it more and more and more when I started getting some traction from it. So, I mean, to this day, I don't have a home studio. I still, pay for hourly studio sessions, but I think leaving the house and going to the studio helps me creatively because it's, I mean, like Lee is almost, like an alter ego version of, not alter ego, like a version of myself I don't always get to express. So when I'm in the studio, I can be 100% Lee, and I don't have to like hold back or anything. And I've been in studio sessions with friends and, with my wife, and I'll try to say like, hey, can y'all leave the studio so I can record this one song? Because the stuff I'm going to say, I don't want y'all to like be here while I do it. And they're all like, no, we ain't going nowhere. Like, whatever the hell you got to say, we're just gonna sit here and listen. So they refuse to leave, and they get to see, leave 100%, and they love it. Like, it's no one's ever come back and said you're not being who you are. In fact, if anything, they see me 100%, and they appreciate me for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah,
And you're true to yourself. You're not, I love the fact that you align yourself with winners and people that are going to tell you like, dude, it's trash. If it
yeah,
is trash, you're going to know, right? And I
yeah.
always think back, I'm a fan of talk radio, and I remember I listened to Howard Stern for years.
Okay.
And there was a dude on there, and he was like the white hip hop guy, and he's like an Italian dude, and he's like, yeah, man, I cut this album. They said it was awesome. I paid him like $3,500, and they cut the album for me, and it never sold anything. And they're playing, and it was total trash. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but the guy at the studio said I was good.
Well,
And it's like, yeah, dumbass, you're paying them. Of course they're
yeah,
gonna say
you
you're
give him
good.
3,500. Like, why would he? He's not gonna say it was awful.
I would tell you you're the greatest thing ever if you were that dumb and you were giving me that kind of money for that. So I think it's cool to be around people that are honest and it'll tell you that. And it just helps you continue to evolve as an artist and as a person. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now I know you
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
But now it's at the point where like I'll work with someone and it'll say, hey, I really like working with you. Hey, you're like really talented. I want to work with you. And that helps me where now I have like personal producers. Not personal, like I have producers I work directly with. I have engineers I work directly with. And we have, a good working relationship where they know how I work, I know how they work. We text, all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily I pay you to do a service and then I'm never going to see it again. It's changed to where it's become a working relationship.
Yeah, and I love that. That's the best way to do it, I think, because everybody's focused on what their strengths are and you can just have your fun and do your stuff. So a couple minutes ago you were kind of chatting and you had mentioned, being from Columbus, which we all love Columbus. I lived there for 32 years. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2010 to open a roofing supply company there. And I moved out of there about 3 years later, but you also said you lived in Texas. So I want to hear a little bit about, the movement around the country, what kind of prompts that kind of stuff, and some of the differences that you experience in all these different locations. Because Ohio, North Carolina, and Texas are like, there is nothing the same about any of them.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. We lived in different parts we bounced around, mostly on the east side, living off of Livingston. Then we moved up to the north side, living off of Morris Road, right, not too far from Easton, things like that. My mom decided that she wanted a fresh start. She wanted, something different. And we had family that lived in Texas and they were doing fairly well and we visited them. So she knew she had an open invitation and it was pretty much, hey, I want a fresh start. I got a kid here who just got into high school. But he's used to bouncing around, and I got another kid I just sent off to college. So it was a hassle to do it with two, but now it's just one. So she gave me the option, like, hey, you welcome to stay here and be with your dad, or you can come down with me. I was always down for the ride. I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's get down there. So we moved to Texas. I lived there for 9 months till I spent my sophomore year of high school in Texas. So when I say like I know the difference between football in Ohio and football in Texas, like I lived it. I'll
Say that louder for everybody in the back, because I'm telling everybody in Texas that they don't believe me.
One thing I
come
will
on, you
give to
guys.
Texas though is like we had practice in the middle of the school day. So like you would go, like you first period, second period, third period, you go to practice, you're supposed to shower, then you go to do the rest of your periods and come back and practice again. We never did that in Ohio, but Ohio does 2-a-days when you're ramping up for the season, and Texas isn't allowed to do 2-a-days last I checked. So, we got to do all of that stuff. Living in Texas didn't work out for our family. So we moved back to Ohio 9 months later. I finished high school there, and then I went to college in North Carolina in Greensboro. And then from there, I moved to Raleigh, and then I lived in Raleigh for 2 or 3 years. And then I went from Raleigh to Charlotte, where I am now. What I will add, the beautiful part of this story is I moved to Texas when I was 15 years old, going on 16. When I was there, I met this young lady and we had a relationship. We went to homecoming and all that stuff. She moved from Texas and went away. And then I shortly left Texas after that as well, and went back to Ohio, like I said. We decided to get back together and do long distance in 2014. And we stayed together from 2014 all the way to this day, who is currently my wife. And we went to college together. I lived in Raleigh. She lived in Charlotte, came down to Charlotte. So I always like the on the page, or the story that is technically the right story, I guess you'll say. I don't even know if that's the right phrase, but my mom wanted to go for a better life. It didn't work out, so we went back. And what I say is God told my mom to send me down to Texas so that I can meet my wife, who is also the mother of my son, and so that I can become, the man I'm supposed to be. So it's a beautiful story, I think. But I hope that answered your question. I know there was probably some other parts I didn't answer.
Oh, that's awesome. That's like way more than I was anticipating. I was anticipating like, I got a job offer or something like that, but that is so cool. And you're right. I mean, fate is so weird how it works, You're in Texas, but not really going to stay here, but you meet the one person that changes your entire life. So it's like, all right, Texas probably sucked, but it was all right because of that. So that's cool. I love going to North Carolina. It's a completely different environment than when I was living in Columbus. When I first got to Charlotte, I was surprised, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that goes on there that you just are like, dude, really? That wouldn't happen in Ohio because someone would probably catch hands or whatever. But tell me a little bit about the experience for you. When I got down there, I was pretty shocked. It was like, man, the South is a real thing.
The funny thing is, I got pretty used to being in the South pretty quickly. Because, like I said, I have family that lives in the South, Texas, Atlanta, Alabama, all that stuff. So we would come to the South regularly, but we still lived in Ohio. So when I came down here for college, I quickly got adjusted, and I grew up with the yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, all of that kind of stuff. So that I was used to that. And I had to get adjusted to just random people just, hi, smiling at you.
Kind of, how are you today? And it's like, we don't do that in Ohio.
Well, I got used to it very quickly. I would go back to Ohio and go visit, and I would just say, people, hey, how you doing? Hey, look at me like, what do you want? Who are you?
Who are you, dude? Yeah, I know.
So, like it's different, just in terms of like Southern tendencies and things like that. But like, I would say the other thing too is just like the culture in general. Like in the Midwest, things are a little bit more cold, a little bit more, a little like kind of rough, rugged a little bit. Whereas in the South, it's more like free, easy going. Now, it's still rough. I'm not saying it's not, but it's more of like, how can I put this? Yeah, it's just more like an easy going rough, I guess. Like
that's the perfect way to explain it right there. And I know exactly what you mean. When I was in Charlotte, we were there and I got to experience quite a bit. It was a cool time in my life. And I never even dreamt that I would ever end up in North Carolina, but same as you, I got an opportunity with the job. They were like, hey, you want to go down there and do this? I'd been driving a truck for 12 years. Yeah. And I don't even have any idea why they asked me, but I was like, yeah, dude, let's go. So I packed up, went to Charlotte. I lived there for several years. I do have to ask a question. And I know that this is going to be like, man, what's this dude's deal? Because I already mentioned Granddad's Pizza over on Morse Road.
Right.
Charlotte. Okay. What part of Charlotte do you live in? Because I got to ask you favorite restaurants in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I got to know if you're familiar with the absolute greatest restaurant on the face of the earth, because it's in Charlotte and in Huntersville.
All right. So
what's your favorite spot in Charlotte?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking to a foodie. I just cooked dinner myself. I think some of the best places in Charlotte, I'll say this. It's called the Crust Pizza. I give a special shout out to them. And I don't know if you know, but the Crust Pizza is started by some Buckeyes that moved to Charlotte, and they're doing Ohio style pizza down here in Charlotte. So
you need to do it here.
Yeah. Oh, well, and like when I got it, I was like, this tastes like Donato's, which I've had Donato's in forever. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I really like the crust. Soul food down here is pretty good. I know Mertz is like the popular. That's where all the celebrities go. There's a lot of like new places popping up. There's always some new lounge, always some new bar and grill. 10, I think it's 1058 or 1028. And for people affiliated with them, forgive me if I got the name wrong, but that's a really good restaurant. It's right next to the Truist Stadium or Truist Field. I like to bounce around. You always get some good stuff. What's the one in Huntersville?
All right. So the one in Charlotte is better. Okay.
Yeah.
And my office, when I was there, we were right off of Freedom Highway or Freedom, whatever, is 74, right?
Yeah.
And then there was Independence. And right there's this little spot. And it used to be an automotive shop. Okay. And it's called Pinky's West Side Grill.
Oh, I know Pinky's. Yeah.
And they got the old thing on the roof and everything. Dude, I went there the day that place opened. And anytime I ever go to Charlotte, I make sure that I have like a 3 or 4 hour layover so I can leave the airport and go eat at Pinky's. And that is my favorite restaurant in the world. And I'm glad that you know about it because
Pinky's. Well, funny story. So my wife and I went to Pinky's, and she's on this diet at the time. And she's like, well, I'm just going to order a salad. But I'm like, okay, yeah, if that's what you want to get. And she gets a chicken salad, I think. And the salad comes, and it's just like,
say it weighs like 17 pounds.
It's a pile of just fried chicken on top of it. And
diet.
I'm like, some diet. So, no, Pinky's is really good. I've been there a few times, actually. And maybe but I've always thought it was loosely based on the character Pinky from Friday. I don't know if
potentially. I could never get a real answer from anybody there. And I guarantee I haven't been to Pinky's probably in like at least 5-6 years now. Yeah. I guarantee it's like the same waitresses that were there like the day that I first went there. And you see some famous people in there too. Like there was some like Ric Flair and guys like that just kind of show up and hang out. But that's completely off the subject, but I appreciate that because I always love to pass on a little bit of goodness about Pinky. So we'll kind of dive back into what we're actually here to talk about, which is your music. And I want to know a little bit more about, you said you've put out a couple singles, you put out an album. Now I got to know about the album here because I'm looking at the title, and the title is very intriguing to me. So the title of the album is You Got McDonald's Money. So tell me a little bit about what's going on with that, because that's a pretty cool title no matter what the story is.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I was chatting with a buddy of mine. I was like, I got to name this album, and I need it to be something that is going to just catch your attention. The second you read it, you're going to say, what the hell is this? Like I always imagine, like, when you used to go to the actual CD store, you would go buy CDs and stuff. And I would think of it like, if someone saw this in a CD store, would they at least pick it up? So that was what I was going for. But I also wanted to be able to like cut through and speak directly to my community. And the phrase, you got McDonald's money, ? Is something that a lot of people in the community know, because when you're a kid, you're riding with your parents, your mom, your grandparents, whoever, going home, going somewhere, and you say, can we stop and get McDonald's? Can we get McDonald's? Can we get McDonald's? And a lot of times the response instantly is, you got McDonald's money, basically saying, no, we're not getting McDonald's because I'm not paying for no McDonald's. We got food at home. And when I wanted to take that and just kind of put like a quick story behind it. So instead I said, you got McDonald's money, period, where I'm not asking, I'm telling you. And in the cover of it is me looking at myself, a younger version of myself saying, hey man, look, you good. You got McDonald's money. And it's a silly metaphor to just say, you have resources. You are doing okay. You've learned how to become financially intelligent. You learn how to become emotionally intelligent. You learn how to, provide for people that you care about and love. You've gotten an education. You're progressing in life, basically. You're evolving and maturing. So that's really what it is when I say you got McDonald's money, saying in something that used to be used as a term of like putting someone down. And you're changing it and you're lifting it up to tell someone, hey man, you're gonna be just fine. You're doing all right.
That's an awesome story right there. I love that, and that's such a cool origin, man. Like that's terrific. Great. I do want to ask you that. Like I'm just caught up in that. That was like that was a great story. So
Thank you.
You've gotten, some stuff out, some published material out there. Obviously, you're pretty serious about what you're doing. You're serious about your craft. Tell me a little bit about what the future looks like for you as far as, you're continuing to evolve with your music, continuing to pursue that as your overall means of supporting your family. What's the future look like as far as that goes? And if everything goes according to your plan, what are we looking at 5 years from now besides, platinum albums on the wall behind you, obviously?
Oh, thank you, man. I'm claiming that. I appreciate it. Like what I've been doing lately, and you've seen a little bit of it so far. After I put out my album, I put out a second EP called Madura Blend, which sounds fairly different from some of the other music I've worked on. And I put it out totally by accident, but it was just, I'm in this new phase of life, and I got creative and I started writing about it. So now I'm kind of shifting my artistry from talking about then and how things used to be and what I saw and who did what then, to now it's, let's talk about me now. Where am I at in life currently? I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm, the leader of my household. I'm someone that people look up to. I like to think at times if I don't, then that's okay too. But so now I'm trying to make music about that kind of stuff. But also make it sound cool, so a lot of people around my age, they're still making, rap songs about, popping bottles and chains and cars and all of that. And I like that stuff. That is good music to me. People my age though aren't talking about 401ks and investments and, taking care of your kid and, providing for your wife, things like that. But that's my truth. That's who I am. So now I'm focused on a lot of my music is related to that. And I'm challenging myself to make it sound just as cool. You hear it and it's oh man, this is just as good as Lil Baby or, 42 Doug or whoever else. And and I've gotten feedback from people where I was just at a wedding. I was the best man actually. We're all getting dressed and one of the songs come on from that EP and we're all just having a good time, getting dressed, enjoying it. And then my friend, he's like, yeah, y'all know that was Lee. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that was you. Man, that's good, man. Play that again. But I'm on there talking about investments and taking care of my kid and all that kind of stuff. But I'm getting the same reaction I did when I was in the studio back in my early 20s. So, I'm just evolving when it comes to music. I just did my first show back in Columbus. When was that? Early April or so. So I'm looking forward to doing more shows in Columbus, more shows in Charlotte. And I'm currently working on some new music now that hopefully will be out within the next 3 months or so. And then that's something I'm looking forward to sharing with the world.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll tell you what, you're good at this interview stuff because that's the segue of the year. The next question I had is, all right, so we've got people that are watching this. I always say millions and millions of people. I already told you I'm taking Joe Rogan down eventually. Yeah, so we're going to see some people that are going to be watching this show. They're going to be like, you know what? I like this guy. I like what he's talking about. Positive, very upbeat. He's, just saying what I want to hear. And I'd like to buy some of his music. So how do we go about making that happen?
Yeah, so all my music is available on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon Music, YouTube, all of that kind of stuff. And you would just search Lee Music. That's probably where you're going to find it most likely. Or you can go to my Instagram. That's where that's my personal store. Anything you want related to me is going to be on my Instagram page at Lee__music. So LEE___music. You can get links to all my, music that's already been put out. You'll be able to see links to shows I have coming up. You'll be able to see behind the scenes footage of me making songs and things like that. I like to really connect with people via Instagram. So please follow me if you like what you hear, and I look forward to interacting with you guys soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's cool. And I'm going to go listen to your stuff now because you're on my show. I appreciate you. You came on here and supported me, so I'm definitely going to support you. Yeah. And before we wind this up, there's one last thing I definitely got to do. And this is probably my favorite part of every episode. I get to introduce somebody brand new to my sponsor. Let me tell you, Lee, about my sponsor. It's called Roofer, ROOFR, roofer.com. And Roofer is basically the solution for any roofing company for any problem you could ever have. we basically capture our initial lead from our clients. We walk them all the way through the process. We do all of our paperwork. We collect all of our payments. We do everything through the Roofer CRM. We measure the roofs and have a great time doing it. Roofer's been my sponsor for 4 years now, and it's been amazing watching them develop from basically just a free little service where you could measure a roof with a mouse pad to now literally running the entire organization through their software. So shout out to Roofer. I love you guys. And it's always been cool to have them as a sponsor. Before we call it a day, I definitely want to thank you for your time here. Is there anything that you'd like to impart upon our audience as a, adios type message to our people today? And then we'll play an ad for the roofing sponsor, and we'll wrap up on the backside.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. First thing, thanks for giving me information about Roofer. When I need to get some roof stuff done in my house, which hopefully isn't soon, but if so, I'll be sure to reach out to them. That's always good to have more information, so thank you.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing I like to leave people with, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is don't be a I wish I woulda or I wish I coulda kind of person. That's kind of what's driving me a lot when it comes to this music thing. If there's something that you want to do, if there's something you aspire to do, if there's something you want to try, just go out there and do it and give it your all and your best. And if you are seeing progress of any sort, and it doesn't have to be drastic, it doesn't have to be huge, but as long as you're seeing progress with whatever it is you want to do, keep doing it. Because the last thing you want to do is be someone that says, I wish I would have done this. I wish I could have done this. So just, whatever it is you want to do, keep it up.
There you go. That's the story of life right there, folks. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate you taking the time to be here this evening. On behalf of everybody at Keepin It Rio, you guys know how I end it every week. This is actually my first episode with my new logo in the back here. It's a lot more energized than what it was. Yeah. So I always like to end by saying, until next week, you guys keep on keeping it Rio. And we'll be back next Thursday. Please stick around for just a second after I cut this off, and we'll finish our conversation on the backside. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're Roofer. We know that managing a roofing business can be chaotic, so we created a single platform with all the tools you need to easily run your roofing business. Stop switching between multiple different softwares and experience streamlined operations from lead to payments in hours instead of days. Visit roofr.com to get started for free today.